Crystal, whenever you're ready.
Welcome to Avalon.
Hi, who's this speaking?
Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn, are you a fairy?
Yes.
Can I trouble you to ask the vessel to speak a bit louder?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Everybody, we can hear her? Great, we can hear you, Gwendolyn.
How are you all doing today?
We're really great and really happy to be here to be with you.
And so is all of us here today.
Who is with us?
Many beings are with us today. They all came to observe.
Yes.
Yes. The light is very strong. I'm sure some of you can feel this familiar feeling. It's familiar for some of you, as if you have been there before, as if you have lived there before, because you have. Must say Avalon, the civilization of Avalon is very, very close to many of you. Perhaps some of you have visited because some of the energy is still retained in today's earth. It is still present. There are portals still around. Now, the beauty of Avalon, I would say Avalon consists of many star beings from the planet Pleiades. If some of you are familiar, Pleiades are very close to the human race, although their figure is much taller. And some say the skin would be fairer and blonde, but I say it's not only blonde, in fact, all kinds of colors. But well known, as you can see in the northern folklores, as in fairies like myself, are usually drawn and colored with blonde hair, or red hair you can say, and fair. And we have long limbs, but we look very much like you. I want to share that we have a close bond with humanity, because that is how it was in the past. We lived together, side by side. We do things together, in partnership, in collaboration. And that is why it was a time filled with happiness, peace, harmony, love. It's a simple life, but it's a beautiful life. We teach humanity about magic. What is magic, you might say? It's as if you're creating nothing from something, or you can say something from nothing. That is magic, meaning the eyes might not be able to see, but yet it can be created energetically. So some of you maybe can see and sense and perhaps even smell. And that is all the senses that is heightened during this time in Avalon. In fact, the humans in that time have very heightened senses because we taught them. That is how we are as fairies. Our senses are actually a lot more sensitive than the humans. Like animals, animals have also very strong senses, whether it's smell or hearing. So it's the same thing in humanity. Actually, as humans, you are also able to heighten your awareness in all these senses, do you know? And it's wonderful. Imagine if you can smell mm, lavender or roses. Imagine 10 times the scent. How wonderful it is. And because of the sense of smell example that we have that is heightened, and therefore when we create, whether it is potions or herbs to create
Gwendolyn,
medicine, yes,
sorry. The vessel's environment is really, really noisy. I'm wondering if we're able to control that.
I'm afraid not because it is a sound coming from the outside.
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
No problem. Sorry to interrupt you.
yes, because there are children around. As you know, when there are children, it's hard to contain the energy. There's so much.
Indeed. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, you're talking about heightened human senses, ability to smell 10 times of the lavender.
Yes, that is right. And all of us, all of you, can have that if you wish as well. Because if you are working with herbs or senses or smell or fragrances or essence, that perhaps is a gift that you wish to practice. Sense of smell, for example. Yes. So many of us fairies work closely, as I say, with humans. We also work closely with, as you label it, witches. Witches, yes, and sorcery. But I don't call them sorcery in a negative way. I hope you understand. It's just like magic. It all just means the same. Creating something from nothing and nothing into something. But the purpose of all this, perhaps some of you have read and heard stories. All of it, really, is also an experiment, and why we are here on earth is because we want to try and experiment different things and using the plants and the herbs and the flowers and the fruits of the earth to create things that can better the life of humanity. And when I say better, I just mean to make it more fun and happy. That is what it is. The purpose, I believe, for humanity and all of us, even at that time, is really to enjoy life, to be free, to feel freedom, to be free, to do what you wish, and no judgment, to be happy, to create. Creation is a gift that you all have as well. And that creation gift that you have when you create something and you know that that something can help somebody or make someone's life happier, you will also feel that joy and that happiness. And that is how energetically everyone is also connected. You connect with each other when you smile, you connect with each other even with your thoughts, and you connect even more when you create something and you gift it to another with the purest of intention. And that is how it was. That is how it was.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. That was so beautiful in your description of Avalon. During the time of Avalon, what is the population like between beings, fairies, witches, humans? What was the percentage or the ratio of the beings mingling together?
I would say at the starting there were probably a lot more, but the ratio would be almost like a 60-40. 60 beings, 40 humans. There was a lot of humans. Yes. But the beginning perhaps it was more like 80-20. But you must understand, even the humans at that time, I would say, are not similar to the humans of today. The humans of that time are really of pure, oh, I do not say you are not, but what I mean is the purity of the heart of the humans at that time. And there is no fear or judgments when they see other beings that are not the same as them, as in the fairies or the witches. They do not view us as different. We are all the same. We view them as the same as well, even though in knowledge we have more, in wisdom we have more. But because we are willing to teach and share all the knowledge that we have, and they are also good students, willing to learn and understand and pass this knowledge on to the next generation so that it doesn't go forgotten. So yes, I would say 60-40, something like that.
Was there intermingling and offspring from the beings coming together?
Yes, there were. There was. And that is why later on, perhaps if you ask me, I would say quite difficult for me to say what is the percentage because there is so many intermingling for generations.
And that's why humans, some of our DNA is actually adopted some of these star beings and the beings' DNA.
That is right. During that time, there's also not only the fairies that you know, but there's also the dragons and the mermaids. Of course, and the unicorns, but of course, unicorns and human do not intermingle in a way of reproduction as you think. No. But for some of the dragons that can shape shift into a form similar to humans, actually they do intermingle, but it is quite rare, although possible. When I say rare, I mean there is not a very big population of them, but there is.
Thank you for sharing that. So, in terms of the magic that was taught to the humans or brought to Earth, what sort of magic still remains here?
I would say healing still remains very much on Earth. So, some of you who are very attuned to natural healing remedies, there must be something, isn't it? Natural healing remedies are something that was brought down from these star beings and star nation, and that's so much part of what we share and generation that is still around today. So, like you like to use flowers or essential oils, those are part of natural healing. And if you like to use organic foods for yourself or plant your own foods, that as well. And even certain kind of teas. Humanity has evolved very, very well, I must say. Very well. That you have also learned to create your own formula of things from all these herbs and plants of the earth.
And now, since the cease of Avalon's existence, are the fairies, unicorns, and dragons still amongst us?
I would say physically not, but the essence are still around. The essence of it. Perhaps there are some, but very, very small community that is still around that you can see sporadically around the earth. But we are unable to come back down in big groups and live together side by side like it was in the past because the land is not the same. The energy is no longer the same.
Understand. So, in this course on Avalon for over 2 weeks, what will be taught to us?
That is a good question. I believe that what Merlin also wants to come true is to share a little bit of history of what happened, the downfall, as well as what is the things that you can learn from Avalon. In the times, what did you learn? What were the things that was taught? Some history and some knowledge of the land, as well as the things that you can take home to practice, I believe, and also to remind you of who you are. Perhaps some of you can remember but many have forgotten where are they from, where were they from, and it's to remember.
That's beautiful. And for those of us who are joining the call today, is there a lot of us from Avalon?
I would say half are from Avalon.
Beautiful. And would that mean that a lot of us here have got the fairies DNA as well, or the dragon's DNA?
Yes, it might be fairy, it might be dragons, might also perhaps have some connection with Merlin. For the
Mm,
time of King Arthur's time, you could have been someone perhaps in his army, even fighting for the freedom and fighting for the rights of the people. When I mean people, I also mean the fairy people, the beings, as well as humans. As you know, there was war during the time as well.
yes. What led to the downfall of Avalon was definitely a lot of war, and that's where it became very cruel during that time towards the beings, especially.
That is right. And a lot has chosen to leave.
Indeed. I'm just going to open up to the class to see whether there's any questions from them. Is there any questions from the class today?
I was wondering how long did it span, Avalon, the period from when? About from when to when?
Oh, I do not know from when to when, but it definitely is a long time. Oh, because it still is so called around even today. But if you're asking about whether the beings, how long they have been around, is that your question?
I was wondering, was it a few thousand years ago, a few hundred years ago? Did it start?
Yes, I would say a few hundred years ago. Few hundred, not thousands, hundreds.
Okay.
Well, it's very near history. That's why there's
Yes,
a lot of evidence of Avalon is still around, like the
that is
Stonehenge.
right. That is right. And perhaps that is why the decision for Toph to choose to put it to the end is because it is quite recent, you can say. So something that is still very, very close to some of you. Perhaps even a most recent past life could be during Avalon.
Indeed. Thank you. I have one question in the chat room, and the question is there what you talked about us having abilities and fairies taught us how to enhance some of our senses. What are some of the ways to remember that?
It is also to create that awareness. So if you, example, would want to heighten your senses of smell, then in a way it is a focus, and also we teach how to shut down the other senses. I would say shut down as in to reduce the other senses. So you heighten one and you reduce the others so that one becomes heightened.
Thank you. Terry, did you have a question?
Did Avalon extend to Brittany in France during the time the Druids?
Yes, it did, indeed.
And how far and wide was the influence of Avalon on Earth in terms of like the land?
A lot of Europe, like British Isles, England, Scotland, Ireland, even some part of France, as I said, a lot of it had very strong Avalon energy.
Yeah, thank you. That was really insightful. Besides the Stonehenge, was there anything else that was left behind by the civilization, Avalon civilization?
Yes, the crops circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's also some of that as well. I believe they say the Merlin's cave is still standing today. So some of the caves and hills do have the energy of the magic that was once practiced.
Was that where the fairies or dragons lived in the caves, while humans lived in castles and houses and huts?
I would say quite a lot of the magic was done in underground in the cave. Yes. But depending who practice, depending what it is for.
Mm.
Yeah. If it is for just to get plants for health, to make tea, for example, for health and nourishment of the physical body, you do not need to do that in a cave.
Indeed.
So, yes, it depends on what is the purpose of it.
What sort of, besides the healing of using plants and flowers, was there any other forms of magic that was taught?
Yes, there's also shape shifting, but that is not for everybody. That is only for those who really choose to be part of the witches' circle or the sorcery or even the druids. Not everyone is chosen to learn about shape shifting.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you. Is there other beings who want to come through for tonight's preview?
No, they are only observing today.
Lovely. Could you share who's observing? Who's most curious about us?
The dragons are here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they keep flickering my lights. My lights keep being flickered by their energy.
Yes. Some of you used to be witches. Maybe one or two.
Who are
So
they?
there is that magic.
Mm,
Just magic, I would say essence of the magic, not any one in particular. Perhaps the energy from the witches.
indeed, indeed. In the class of Avalon, for those of us who join, will there be some remembrance and activations that happens in the class?
Yes. And it would be nice, isn't it, to do some magic in the class?
Oh yes, that would be really nice in the class to do that. Yes.
Yes, I believe there will be some activation and perhaps even some magic spells.
Oh, lovely. For those of us who are actually, I mean, a lot of us who are here today, we all have the DNA of the star beings and the star nations. And remembering that is also remembering part of our natural gift. Am I right?
Yes, that is right.
How did we forget?
You choose to forget.
Mm.
Imagine if you came into this life knowing all the past lives that you have lived, every single one of them, including all the times that you have been killed or died. Not necessarily you have been, not necessarily you die in a tragic way, of course, but some of you and many of you have, especially those who have lived in the time of Avalon. Because if you are already here listening to this, means you are very much connected to the time of Avalon. So you might, or most likely, have fight alongside us, the pure ones, you can say. So, and therefore, your death would not have been pleasant. Imagine if you could have felt and remembered all that. I do not think you would live a very happy life today.
When you talk about the pure ones, are they the beings and not the ones that were offspring of the beings and the humans?
No, when I speak of pure ones, I speak of the purity of the heart, and not necessarily, we do not judge whether you are a pure as in 100% a star being or whether you have been mixed because of the generations from your parents or grandparents. I
Indeed.
mean the pureness of your heart. Yes.
And what was the war about?
The war was about control. As you see and you know, a lot of us is very powerful, as in the magic that we create, the alchemy, can be done for many things, good and perhaps even for not good. So there is always beings, people who want to control what is not theirs, but you cannot force anybody or anyone to do your bidding for you. That is not the balance. Of course, if someone is willing to help, that is okay. But imagine if you are forced to do something that you do not believe in.
Indeed. Thank you. Was there a specific role that the fairies played and the unicorns and the dragons, the mystical animals of the land at the time? What were the roles? What were their roles in comparison to the humans?
Yes, everyone had different roles, of course. Even the fairies, we all have different roles, following the seasons. So it depends. If you are a summer fairy or categorized under a summer fairy, then you will help with that. Where the crops and the plants and the flowers, where they bloom and there's time to harvest. And if you are like the winter time, winter season, then you are also, before that, you will help the animals to gather food. Humans, all beings also help animals because animals are also beings. So everyone help each other to gather food and wood enough to help through the winter season. So everybody had a part to play, even a small part is still a part to play, all in perfect balance and perfect harmony.
Beautiful, thank you. And for those of us born today, is there any evidence in us right now that we've been in Avalon? Like, where are some evidence in ourselves, in our looks or on our skin or our gift?
I would say it's more your own attraction towards things of Avalon.
Mm,
Yes, that is a big hint on whether you once were. Sometimes you cannot explain why you look at a picture or you look at an object and it seems so familiar to you as if you've once owned it or had it or you know it. So
mm,
that your inner sense of knowing perhaps is something that tells you. For those of you who have heightened senses of smell, if you enjoy the senses of smell, that is also perhaps a hint, not only in Avalon, but perhaps even in Egypt times as well, because smell during these two civilizations plays an important role.
thank you. That's very beautiful. Okay, we have around 4 minutes left. I will want to thank you so much, Gwendolyn, for being here with us. What you brought was beautiful message. Really appreciate it.